things we came up with were, if you look at transportation and mobility, you have, first of all, you have the vehicles, so the things that move around. The main idea was push the technological progress that's there, so push for alternative vehicles, maybe also for more innovative vehicles that have smart systems where they're in contact with taxi companies who know where you have the traffic jams, or maybe not only rebuild vehicles that you have, but build completely new vehicles with alternative motors. So that was the first one. Second, look at the network where this vehicle drives around. For logistics, I think one of the key drivers here could be consolidation of the supply chain, so have either one provider doing the whole supply chain, or have competition work more closely together to increase load factors and decrease all those half-empty or empty trucks running around. But also improve the network for the everyday user. So especially for developing countries, increase mobility through public transport systems. And then once they're there, try to think about smart ways how you can incentivize people to use it. One we came up with was to introduce multimodal smart cards. So you have a card that you can use for all kinds of public transportation, and that can, for example, even give you discounts for shopping, or you can collect bonus miles or something like that and be incentivized that way. Another thing we were looking at, if you have the vehicle and the network, you also have the person who drives the vehicle. And we've seen that in especially logistics industry, it works very well to train the drivers. I think we've also heard this several times during the last days, how many millions of liters you can save if you really train the driver. So we thought that maybe this could be transferred to the private drivers, and one way could be to have a fancy online training course that might be enough incentive to log on and have an interactive training. Another maybe more pushy approach would be to include it as a mandatory part of getting your driver's license. So having a part of the test, as a part of the test, that you have to prove that you can drive efficiently. Then the fourth one was looking at reducing the purpose of travel at all. So I think there are already good ideas out there, like video conferencing that can replace meetings. They're not fully used yet, so I think part of it is because of technological availability, but on the other hand, it's maybe also that they're not fancy enough. So like a video game, I mean, usually people like to do games on screen, so if it could be somewhat more fancy and maybe more people would promote it, that could be an alternative. And last but not least, rather as an overarching system, provide more transparency. And I heard this from several of the other speakers, to make it easier also for private people, but also for business people, shippers or companies, to choose what is actually would be a green means of transportation, rather than having everyone to find out proactively. Introduce a standard. So on the one hand, you'd have standard measurement of carbon. For example, if we take trucks, we don't know if you'd probably if I ask, be you an expert or not, you to calculate the carbon footprint of your car or a truck, we'd probably have as many results as we have people in this room. So have one neutral platform where everyone provides the data, and then have a common standard and even a benchmarking system. For example, a traffic light or something like that. It works well, for example, with fridges. I'm not sure whether you have it in Indonesia, but in many parts of the world you have the fridge and it has a traffic light that shows you exactly how energy efficient a fridge is. So the people can actively choose, be it the private people or people in business, without having to go through all the carbon accounting and finding the right standards. So I think this was trying to summarize the outcome of our group, and The people who are here from the group are welcome to amend afterwards.
Thank you very much indeed, Katerina. And now, last but not least, I'd like to turn to Jay Witherspoon from CH2M Hill, who's going to talk about the water working group.
Yeah, thank you. And like the other groups, we had a very lively discussion, and we're going to start out pretty bold. And we had six.
We like that.
We had 6 takeaway messages. The first one is water is life. Without water, there would be no life. And what that really means is that we need to be looking at the total water cycle, from the first drop of water that's either harvested from the rain, stored, treated, used, reused, and recycled. We need to be aware of that. So we wanted to make sure that the group understood that we have to be accountable for our water footprint, and then think beyond technology and look at both a technology, a social, and a political solution in trying to address the water issue as we go forth. Our second point was to build and use relevant communities collaboratively focused on smart water usage, smart farming, human health, and in the environment. And that means starting at the lowest denominator, starting in the communities, coming and pulling together the stakeholders, which are the residents, the businesses, the farmers, the suppliers of water, the treaters of water, the forest, all those stakeholders at a community level, then go to a regional level, then go to a state level, and then go to a country level, and then go to a global level, trying to enforce human health and safety as you go forth. The third area we looked at was harnessing the power of technology. Technology has a lot of balls in the air that could come and help you. But with technology, we came up with 2 strategies. One is the passive ability to conserve water and reduce water usage, which gets you about 50 or 60% of the way on your conservation curve. The other 40% requires some type of treatment. So you have to balance the energy needed for the treatment to get the water that you want to recycle and reuse. And as you go further to get closer to 100% recycle, the higher the energy, the higher the cost, and the higher impacts on other medias are seen as you go forth with that. We also saw technology as a way to reduce risk and do it as risk mediation so that you could have a sustainable water supply or a crop for the next 150 years. We had some examples of a sugar farmer in Australia who's been in business for 150 years and starting to look at the extreme water flooding events that happen in Queensland, and is that going to be a reoccurring theme under climate change? And if it is, how is he going to stay in business for another 150 years? Does he have to move his crops up the equator, down the equator, or change his method of farming? So it's looking at risk mediation as a solution. The fourth area, as business leaders, we want to be very bold and fix the water market. So it was actually fixing the water market, so you could take it either way that you like. What that really means is in 2 areas. The first is come up with a strategy or mechanism that market prices the water. We saw big disparities in 2 examples of the price of water. In one case, it was in California, where the farmers have had a grant that's over 100 years old on their water rights, and so they're paying a very low price for that water. And today's value of that water, it's 2,000 to 3,000 times higher than the value of that water, yet that rights is almost unbreakable, and they had water fights and all that type of thing. The other example was the cultural differences you see, say, in the Middle East or in some of the Asia-Pacific countries, where water is a given right. It's free. And then you suddenly start to charge for the water to be treated, to meet the water quality standard, to get the impaired water treated so that you could have it for growth. They don't want to pay. So you have to figure out how you balance these old antiquated laws and rights, and also the cultural effects on a political and technical ability to go forth. And the second area is on fixing the water market is on the governance side. How is water really governed? Who is the responsible group to do that? In many countries in the world, the politicians can lose their job by imposing regulations and laws that cause the water rates to go up, or lack of water, or saying no to industry and to growth, so because they have very conflicting needs and wants. Fourth area that we looked at is lack of a very powerful leadership and governance in managing water globally. As humans, we react very quickly to the events that occurred just recently, the earthquake in Japan, the earthquake in New Zealand, we react within sometimes minutes. Water